Yo, 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 what's going on? Welcome back out to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. Today, as you can see, we have a special guest and not so special of a guest because he's going to be somewhat of a permanent guest moving forward, especially for the topic of conversation today being the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, me and Justin have talked, and as you can see, Logan is with us. He's not a stranger to the channel. He was in a very successful video of ours talking about Kobe Altman and some of our potential offseason woes, which have turned around for the most part 4 games in. Some decent moves there. I think everybody could agree that Jarrett Allen is the primary bright spot of Kobe Altman's tenure as the general manager. And Evan Mobley is looking like potentially early on, but could be the best player in this draft, which would be really nice. I think the Cavs deserve that luck after some of our draft luck. But me and Justin and Logan sat down and we have decided to do this once a week for now. But if the Cavs, continue on this pace and are pretty good, it'll probably be more. We're hoping to cover the Cavs, but we're going to do a weekly Cavs roundup, every Tuesday, hoping to get 4 or 5 games of content and conversation. So with that all being said, I'm going to throw it to Justin right off the rip. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's great to have Logan back. It's great to have the 3-man format going on here. And obviously, you and I, we talk our Brown stuff quite a bit. So bringing in a little bit of a specialist for the basketball stuff is great.
Specialist, yes.
Yeah, we do love it. Logan's called basketball games for our high school and for a little bit of college. So he's got a little bit of expertise and he's a huge Cavs fan. So I'm really glad to get him on here. Obviously, he's very opinionated. He used to have his own podcast and everything. And I couldn't have thought of a better person to bring on for this. So really happy to have Logan here. I'm really happy to be talking about the Cavs right now.
Yeah, for sure. Logan, how are you feeling so far through 4 games? You feeling good?
Well, here's the way I look at it, guys. The Cavaliers have played 4 very solid basketball teams and came out the other end 2-2. Obviously, there's good, there's bad, and really it's a case of 2 games. I mean, if you want to look at the first 2 games, giving up, 132 and 120 some, and then they hold them under 100 the next 2 games after that. I mean, I think we've seen how good the Cavs can be in the last 2 games and how bad the Cavs can be in the first 2 games. But I think that's I think as a Cavs fan, what we're hoping for is just a competitive team. And the one thing you can't take away from the Cavs, aside from maybe 5 to 6 minutes of bad basketball against the Charlotte Hornets, they have been a competitive basketball team.
That's definitely a key factor because especially in the past 2 seasons, last year, which thinking we were going to be a lot more competitive, that is a big optical factor. I think a lot of people look at the box score. They think NBA, maybe 10, 12, 15-point losses really aren't that bad, but it does get demoralizing as a fan base
Absolutely.
when you're basically, written out of every game. And I saw something on Twitter. That was our first road win in October since 2017. And that's not a pushover team. I mean, we've beat the Nuggets, we've played heels to heels with the Memphis Grizzlies, who are a playoff team, but I want to get right into it. And these are going to be probably longer form videos. So as per usual, timestamps are in the comments. If you're here for a specific topic of conversation, they're all going to be listed. You can skip right to it. But Justin, I know your biggest contention through 4 games is Isaac Okoro usage, how he fits into this team, along with the 3 big lineup being Lauri Markkanen, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley. So I want to throw it to you. Is this a coaching issue through 4 games, or is this we have too many moving parts that are new in the offseason and JB Bickerstaff probably can't get it right?
There's definitely a lot of moving pieces here. Obviously, you mentioned it already, the 3 big man starting lineup that we have. There's really no fixing that lineup because, even with me wanting to start Okoro over Sexton for, offensive purposes and defensive purposes, coming off the bench and such, it's rough, but we talked a little bit about it before we started recording that, there's the starting lineup and then there's kind of that closing lineup that we had. And, last night was a, really good example of what that closing lineup would be. Ricky Rubio, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and a little bit of Isaac Okoro and Kevin Love. I'm sure we'll talk about Kevin later, but I just think Okoro doesn't offer too much in the sense of offense. And, what you would want for Sexton is to be that kind of go-to guy coming off the bench to score points. I don't think Ricky Rubio is a consistent scorer, even though he has played very well. I think he's more of that kind of passer, the second passer after Garland, and I think him and Sexton coming off the bench would be a great matchup, especially with moving Okoro to the 2 and having him play that long term. But it's tough. This is the first time Bickerstaff is having this, group of guys play together. And 4 games in, he's done all right. So
I think the sole bright side of Okoro coming off the bench is that it basically forces him to play to his strengths. I feel like when he starts, he might be taking perimeter shots that are not his forte. And when he comes off the bench, he has to be the rebounder. He has to be the defender and the hustle player. I'm going over to Logan now. I know there was rumors preseason about, and preseason, I mean, literally right before the first game, that Okoro was going to be benched. And we thought that was plausible, but there was also what Justin was talking about, how there was some, talks internally that Colin Sexton may be relegated to a bench player and having Okoro play in that starting role position, and then having Sexton basically be the 6th man. How did you feel about those? Do you think that those were valid, and would you support that?
Well, first off, guys, don't look now, but the Cavaliers actually have a good problem for the first time in a long time. You have so many different pieces, so many guys that can contribute to this basketball team. They're actually stuck with a situation with who is our starting 5, who is our closing 5. I think JB Bickerstaff has a lot of work cut out for him just finding that lineup more than anything. I think once he establishes his starting 5s, establishes his bench, the Cavaliers bench has a chance to be one of the better benches in the NBA. For me, we talked about it yesterday, us 3 in our group chat as the game finished up. I think I would just keep it simplistic as Garland, Sexton, Okoro, Mobley, Allen. But I do like Okoro's energy off the bench. Sexton, I think when he lets the game come to him, that's when our team is at its best. Jeff, you had alluded to it yesterday, just saying when he shoots less, we seem to win more. I think Sexton this season has done a great job of picking and choosing his spots. And I think if Okoro can just stay within his role, and that is simply cut to the basket, rebound that basketball, and get defensive stops, that the starting 5 can be really good. Very young, too. Very young, a very quick starting 5. So I know we're talking about Sexton and Okoro both going to the bench. For me, I think throw them both in the lineup as long as everyone knows the role, everyone's on the same page, because that 3 big lineup, it really irks me. I think it could be really, really effective when used in spurts. It will not work long-term. Its longevity. It just doesn't work. Because, you watch that Grizzlies game and Laurie Markkinen out on the perimeter. We got torched. I've never seen so many dunks by John Morant and company. Just right to the rim, nobody in his path, uncontested dunks kind of beat when we have our 3 big lineup out there. It's kind of like, it's not like the Warriors' death lineup. What I'm saying is you have to use it in spurts because it can be effective. It depends on what stage in the game. I think coming out when everybody's fired up, ready to go, that's not the lineup to use. Jeff, I don't know if I answered any of your questions. I go off
No, you did.
But I'm just saying it's a good problem in Cleveland to have a lineup issue right now.
Yes, the underlying factor is that it's a very tough ask for a basically rookie head coach and JB Bickerstaff to figure that out. What I like, especially if you haven't watched the games, and box score scouring in the NBA, just made that up, but that happens in the NBA, especially due to the amount of games. And a lot of people, especially with the Cavs, it's fair to say that they don't trust watching games because of how we've been the last few seasons. But if you look at the team leaders, I think this is interesting. Points per game, Colin Sexton, 19 points per game, team leader. Assists per game, 9 for Ricky Rubio. Field goal percentage is Jared Allen at 83%. Then you go over to the defensive side of the ball. Rebounds per game, Jared Allen, 9.5. Steals per game, Lauri Markkinen, 1.5. And blocks per game, Evan Mobley. So out of your 6 major box score categories, 3 on the offensive side and 3 on the defensive side, the only overlap is Jared Allen. Everywhere else, it's two unique players on the defensive side, Markkanen and Mobley, and it's two unique players on the offensive side, Sexton and Rubio. I think outside of superstar dominated teams, which right now the Cavs do not have a superstar that dominates the lineup, that's what you want. LeBron James, he could go points, assists, rebounds, blocks. He could do that. Not many teams have LeBron, prime LeBron. KD could do that. Not many teams are going to have that. So, we saw the Phoenixes of last year. You needed Chris Paul involved. You needed Devin Booker involved. You needed Jay Crowder to step up. Here's the thing, and I want Justin's take on this. Organically offer it. 4 games in, if I would have told you this preseason, I want to see your reaction. Rebounds per game. We are 23rd, the Cavs, in rebounds per game with 43.8. Assists per game, we're tied second with 28.3 assists. I think this is a good issue to have, but if I would have told you this, Justin, preseason with 3 7-footers and Kevin Love at like 6'10", what would your reaction be?
Well, I think that's part of the reason we brought Rubio in, because obviously Garland was our big time, passer when he was playing last year when he was healthy. And outside of that, we've always talked about how bad of a passer Colin Sexton has been for all the driving he does. And so I think it's huge that, in the assist column, we've gotten a lot better. And to be fair, you watch Evan Mobley when he gets the ball, sometimes he is very good with his eyes. I mean, he is very good at seeing guys get open, and having that two-man tandem of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, it's hard to guard those two both in the paint. And so if one of them's open, they're pretty good at passing it to each other so far. The rebounds are interesting because there were times I was pretty upset with our defensive rebounding last night. There were some woes, but overall, I think that's something that can be fixed. Going back to Logan's point about the 3 big man starting lineup, I just think that, in terms of transition and just like how they kind of go about rebounding, it's kind of weird because, they're a little slow, that 3-man lineup, that 3 big man lineup. And so I think that plays a little bit of a role into how they go about rebounding sometimes. But Logan, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, Jeff, Justin, you guys hit it right in the head. 38 assists in game 1 against the Grizzlies. I mean, that ball was hopping. But yeah, out-rebounded 53-36 in that Grizzlies game, as well as 13-7 in the offensive end, much like you said, Justin. I mean, defensive rebounding, when you have 3 7-footers out there, that ball should be in your grasps, every single possession down. But yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning when you look at that. But that's what you have to do when you're a okay, average, even a bad basketball team. You got to pass that ball. That you should have a balanced box score each night. And if you look at let's even look at the Nuggets last night. You had, or was it against the Hawks? The Hawks, you had 6 players in double figures. Okoro had 9 points, would have made it 7. You look at last night, I think I told you guys balanced scoring up and down that lineup, plain and simple. It seemed like a different player was scoring every single possession. Similarly, even in the Grizzlies game, you saw 17-9-6 1-1 as a debut for Evan Mobley, and what he's had followed up with 13-5 2-2-2. Hawks got 17-11 1-2-4, and last night was probably his worst game, and he still was very, very effective. So I think when you have a balanced team, that also makes it easier on your rookie. You're not setting the benchmark with, okay, here's LeBron James scoring 37 points and here's Mobley getting 3, right? When you have a team that's just good to average, having players who are just balanced, a lineup that is all effective, I think it also makes it easier on the rookie to pick and choose his spots for sure.
I think the assists stat is startling because Darius Garland missed the game, and preseason I would have told you that he probably would lead our team in assists. I knew Ricky Rubio was a good facilitator. I didn't think he was going to be this good so far through 4 games. I honestly thought that Laurie would probably have a bigger impact, which he's had his moments here and there, but like you guys have been saying, it's a roster where everyone has to play to their strengths, and that will minimize the weaknesses of everyone else on the court. It's not like we're asking Okoro to take 10 threes a night. It's not like we don't want Colin Sexton shooting 25 30 times a game, and everybody plays their role. And then you have these bench players that perform above their role. You saw this in Kevin Love last night, and I don't want to jinx anything, but And I'll go back to Logan because I know he feels passionate about this. Do you think Kevin Love could play that well all season long?
They found Kevin Love's role. They did it. I can't believe it. I don't think he can play 22.6 rebounds well the rest of the season off the bench. But similarly, like I've been mentioning, picking and choosing spots, I think it's perfect for Kevin Love. Also, him running with Ricky Rubio, a former teammate of his in Minnesota, they even mentioned the post game how they still have that connection. Certainly, I think Rubio knows where Love likes the ball. I think now Kevin can you not have to be the guy. I think for the last couple of seasons, maybe he even knew it. He wasn't the guy. I think he found that out with Team USA this summer when he was cut from the team because he simply wasn't in shape. He simply wasn't cut out for that, style of play. I think he always had the name though, Kevin Love, and he has the contract of $30+ million a year. I think you have to look away from the contract, put him in a role that fits him, suits him, and now he can be serviceable anywhere. I think we all were talking, a couple of months ago, about that, saying that is there even a spot in the NBA for Kevin Love when it comes to like a trade or something like that? I think Love has found a role where he's just the veteran of a young team for a city that he does love, and he can put up anywhere from 10 to 12 points a night, 5 to 7 rebounds off the bench, and shoot 38% from the three-point line. I think that's all he has to do. It will never live up his contract. We know that. But I think you have to look past that. This is a role for Kevin Love where he can really thrive. First guy off the bench, second guy off the bench, it doesn't really matter. But you're putting him around also a good bench lineup. Rubio, like I said, he's familiar with. Okoro, I guess I'm going to say what I want our bench to be. Rubio, Lauri Markkanen, who can spread the floor, give you some more space with Kevin. I don't know if we're going to see much of Dylan Windler this year. He obviously always battles injuries. I think he could also be a solid piece that gets thrown in there. But you can tell he's in the right situation now. He's in the right lineups. And I think as the season progresses, if you can just keep Kevin Love comfortable, you'll get a good outing from him any night.
I think, and Jeff, I don't want to cut you off, but I think that's kind of going to be the talking point moving forward, especially with JB Bickerstaff. I mean, trying to find the roles for all these players on this team. We talked about it already that the points are pretty spread out for the most part. You got 5 to 6 guys scoring at least an average of 11 points. There's a lot to figure out here, and there's a lot to get comfortable with. And we've already, it's a huge topic of conversation. It's the lineups, the guys coming off the bench. Bickerstaff, telling people that there could be swaps in the middle of the season. It's a, growing process. All that's very true. And all that's very important for the success of this team moving forward. I'm sure for the most part, Logan, great points all around with Kevin Love finding his kind of role for this team. I think, moving forward, that's kind of going to be, I have 3 players in my mind. It's Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and Isaac Okoro. These 3 guys, I think they're kind of in the jumble right now of what their exact roles are. I mean, obviously Okoro, a phenomenal defender, Markkanen, 3-point specialist from what we've gathered in the offseason, and Colin Sexton, a guy who's, kind of going through a transition. He's kind of letting, the ball play a little bit more in the hands of other players and kind of taking a backseat role in terms of scoring. So I think there's going to be a lot going on this season in terms of just, finding our comfort zone. And so there might be a little bit of growing pains, but I've liked what I've seen through 4 games so far.
3-point specialist. Did you see Lauri Markkanen dunk on the MVP last night?
Goodness. It was something special.
That's how you do it, though, right? When you're in a game at Denver against a good team, like show them, we're Cleveland, we're here. I mean, that was pretty awesome. That's the way you get the game going. And I think that honestly, even just a simple play like that gets this team going, which is a lot of fun to see. I mean, we talked about Colin Sexton and Kevin Love having maybe locker room issues. Could not see it last night in Denver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely one of the bigger road games in a while that came with a win for our Cleveland Cavaliers. So very exciting. And I think for the most part, pretty good conversation. I think that, we can move toward wrapping this up, but I just want to leave you guys with some more stat picking from our regular season last year compared to 4 games this year, albeit a very small sample size. Our rebounding is very similar, which is something that we addressed. through 4 games, we're averaging nearly 5 more assists a game than we were all of last season. So if you figure, 2 to 3 points an assist, that's, that could be an extra 10 to 12 to 13 to 15 points a game for a team that only averaged 103.8 points a game last year. So you would hope 115 points a game wins you a couple more ball games that are closely contested compared to, only 104. And believe it or not, last year, 14.4 turnovers a game. And through 4 games this year, only 13, which I do not think we've necessarily done that well in the department of turning the ball over. I think the 5 or 6 minutes in the Charlotte game was very sloppy, but we have not. I think that's going to improve. And if our assist numbers stay the same and our turnover numbers go down, that's only going to mean more points on the board for us. So just to wrap it up, I'll start with Justin. Any final thoughts?
Gonna be a little bit of a stretch. I tweeted when we lost that first 2 games, I was worried for this team in terms of being able to come out of October with a win. Going on a little bit of a away game stretch. Got the Clippers, the Lakers, Phoenix, and Charlotte all away. It's a tough stint of games to play, but I think there is some opportunity there for them to make a statement against one of these teams, maybe get some revenge on the Hornets at their place. But outside of that, the only point I want to make is we need to keep an eye on the minute distribution for this, for these players. Jeff, you made a point before we started talking about, who's finishing games for us. And I think it plays into, these minutes per games. Right now, you got Evan Mobley, Garland, Allen as your top 3 guys, along with Markkanen, and then Colin Sexton under 30 minutes and right in front of Ricky Rubio with only a minute more played. A lot of just I keep going back to it. It's going to be an interesting season with finding out, what Bickerstaff does with all these players. But besides that, I'm looking forward to meeting back up in a week and seeing where we are. Hopefully, maybe 4-4 would be a good stint to be.
Yeah, I think so for sure. A lot of tough road games, and the minute usage will definitely be a big thing. Logan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, that dreaded West Coast run was even tough when LeBron played here, right? I mean, I think that's usually we used to go 1-3, 2-4, whatever the heck the road stint was. When this team plays defense, Justin said it yesterday in our group chat. This team is pretty damn good. Last night, 21 turnovers to 32 points. I think they're very scrappy yesterday. I think the 4 games they've been very scrappy. I think also now they have their feet wet, their legs underneath them. I think they can be a very solid defensive team with a solid bench and a team that can pass. And I think when you do that, you have a chance in any game. I think even upcoming for this, 4-game road trip.
Yep.
I think even if you go 1-3, but you're competitive in all the games, I think most Cavalier fans won't complain. I think this team has done a good job of not folding, especially that Grizzlies game. They got, they came all the way back, made it a 1-point game, despite, I think they could have just sat down in their hands, down 12 with 7 minutes to go. They fought back. Hornets game, things not go their way in that third quarter. They still didn't, get totally blown out the gym, right? Atlanta, teases them late. They start coming back. I think Cavaliers only scored 18 in that final frame, but they come out with a win. Nuggets, same deal. I mean, they came out and they dominated the fourth quarter. It was only a 5-point game going into that final quarter. So I think at the end of the day, if you can be competitive, if you're showing Cleveland that, you're trying in each game and you're trying to make it happen, I think anybody will be satisfied with that as a Cavalier fan.
At the end of the day, I think the fan base can agree the most that we've been able to talk about through 4 games of an NBA regular season post second LeBron era. I know that I'm enjoying it. I know that Justin's loving it. And I know that Logan is going to come week in and week out and bring great analysis. And, we're not here for, this isn't Twitter. We're not going to give you a bumper sticker slogan and then go on with our days. We're not going to say pay Colin Sexton, whatever he wants.
Let him know.
We're not going to say, let him know Lauri Markkanen was the best offseason signing ever. We're going to give you long form 3-way discussion, and it's going to be good. It's going to be great. So we appreciate you guys sticking around for this long, if you made it this far. And we really encourage you guys to check out the rest of these videos that we will be doing throughout the whole season, and make sure that you subscribe, and we'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.